Hi, I'm Brittany, and I used to think that life wasn't worth living. Today on the Brave Show, we're talking about postpartum depression.
Hey brave girl, how you do the things that you do? Don't mind.
Hey everyone! Welcome to the Brave Talk Show, the show for brave women craving the connection that comes with real conversations about the concerns and TMI details we face every day. We're your hosts. I'm Robyn.
I'm Vanessa.
I'm Teresa.
And I'm Brittany.
Be sure to subscribe to join our weekly conversations. This episode may not be appropriate for children, so if you need to, put your headphones on to enjoy this adult conversation. Okay, guys, today we're talking about postpartum depression. But first, we need to jump into our hot topics.
All right.
Woo!
Breastfeeding in public. Ready? Go.
Did you do it? I did. But I always had a cover on. I never
always had a
felt
cover
comfortable.
I guess that's a question. Everybody breastfeed in public, but covered or uncovered?
Not necessarily. Some people go in like bathroom stalls and go in other rooms or
true.
stay in their
Yeah.
car
Yeah.
or, you know what I mean? Some people don't even feel comfortable with the cover.
Yeah. So for me, it depended on each child. I've had 4 kids. My first kid, I was definitely like, it was my first time. Like, oh my gosh, I never pulled my boobs out in front of people before. Like, this is really
fourth, you're
awkward.
like,
Yeah, I was a lot more comfortable by the 4th child. So the first one, I was definitely like in the bathroom, back room, facing the other way kind of stuff. And I also, like, none of my friends had kids at the time. So the first time I tried breastfeeding in front of friends, they got all awkward. They're like, oh, should we be in here? Oh my gosh. And I think that kind of like set me off in the wrong direction. But with each other kid, I got more and more comfortable. I've never been one to like not covered and just pull it out.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I don't really have a problem too much with women who do that. To me, it's beautiful. It's natural. If they, if it's more comfortable, I'd rather have that baby get fed than not get fed because you don't want to like, expose yourself.
Totally. So I've got ginormous boobies. For those who are new followers, I just actually got a breast reduction just recently, 4 months ago. And so breastfeeding was very hard for me in public because
They're even
you have
bigger
to
with milk.
unstrap your 9-point harness just to even get them out. And then it's like laying on the kid's head and they're crying and they're screaming. And it was hard. But I did it. I was always covered, but I would do anything possible to avoid it. Yeah. Like I would prefer to stay in my hot car or in the bathroom stall where I can like prop up my boob and hold the baby and not worry about like cover. It was hard for me.
Especially if it's hot out, because I find that the babies don't want that thing over their head when it's
Yeah.
hot, and they're like,
Their
get it
hand
up,
is-
get it up, and you're like, you're sweating. It's like this thing's covering it up.
Yeah.
So.
Breastfeeding for me, I really couldn't just hold the baby like this. I had to have like a whole bunch of gadgets. Like I had to have the boppy pillow and hold the baby, and then I usually would have to use one hand and hold my breast with the baby. And so out in public, like if I have my other 3 kids, like no. So I would actually really try to avoid it. Not because I was worried about people seeing my boobs, but just because like it was so
It was a spectacle.
It was so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
For me, I was covered. I think the weirdest was that, like, in church, we always sit in the back row, and it would be, like, babies crying and sacraments being passed. So, like, I put my thing over me, and I'm, like, I have my husband, like, helping me, and I'm, like, in the back, like,
I love it.
Yeah.
in church.
Yeah.
Like, but I know, but, like, I will never show my boobs because I feel like, I don't care if people do it, but it's probably not me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But I've been out in public where it's like, oh, hungry, cover
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
here you go.
Here's another question though. What about, this is related. What about around your other kids? Like when you're at home, do you still cover up around your other kids?
Oh no. I am a free spirit.
Oh yeah, me too. My kids got
Yeah,
to see
they see everything.
I
Yeah.
think it's good. Like,
Yeah.
I've even like pumped in front of my kids, and I feel like a cow just sitting there. It's
yeah.
like a double pump. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, no. If I don't like to be covered when I breastfeed.
At
so
home, it's me
wide
too.
open.
It's like, here you go. This time I'm just laying on the bed and it's like,
Yeah.
like cool.
And it's totally natural. My kids, so I have a 1.5-year-old. So when my little 1.5-year-old was a baby, my other kid was 1.5, and he'd be like, "Mommy, feed baby, baby, like boo boo." Like it's natural. Yeah, we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great topic.
yeah. Did we get your answer? Or did I like?
I feel like I answered it at the beginning.
Oh, that you covered it up.
Yeah. So
But did you have any?
didn't have
What about like
problems.
any like crazy weirdest places you ever nursed?
I would nurse anywhere. Like we lived in DC when I had my first 2 kids, and I nursed at the National Monument. Like I nursed anywhere. I always had a cover. Like I had a little thing that went around my neck, and then I could peek down. It was perfect. I had this little thing so I could peek down. But I have tiny boobs. And so it was like, I had to really get the kid up there.
Yeah, I had the same
Yeah.
issue. Like one time, one of my sons wanted to nurse while I was grocery shopping, and he was like crying. And when you're grocery shopping, like you don't want to be that mom with the screaming kid. So I remember like putting him in my little, whatever the little carriers, whatever that I had at the time, and like trying to get him to like put my boob in his mouth, but my boobs are not that big. It's not like, so it's like having to put their head like way down there, and I was like having this, and it was hard. I'm like walking around trying to.
Sounds like it's
push
not
the
easy
kid.
for any size.
I don't know. Like I see some women make it look like just so easy.
That
It's
is
like
true.
Have
pop,
you ever been
there
in the
it
car,
is.
you're driving, and then in the car seat, and you just, I don't know, maybe you do it because you have big boob, and you
And
just
you're just like,
lean
drop
over.
it in there.
Yep.
You're like, hey, yeah. That's the perky of long drop.
Yeah.
But I did.
Boobies over there, got little boobies
I
over
have
here.
pumped on because I used to teach, and I was like breastfeeding, so I have pumped on my way to work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got the little battery operated in every way. I would just drive to work, 45-minute commute, pump, pump, pump.
Yeah.
That's how I had to do it.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
So you're out with your kids. So all of us probably are the consensus that we don't care that our kids see our boobs. Okay, you're at the mall with your kids, and another mom whips out her boob to breastfeed her kid, and all your kids see someone else's boob. Does that change how you feel?
No.
No, I think if she's nursing, no, but if she's just like flashing people, then yeah.
But like, let's say you see the reveal, you see the whole thing, and then
With
the
the
baby
baby?
attaches
I would
with
just
all
tell
your
my kids,
kids.
don't
Natural
stare.
part of life.
Don't
Yeah.
stare.
Don't-
Like let her
exactly,
be.
don't
She's taking
stare.
care of her baby. It's
Yeah.
beautiful and natural, but you don't need to be staring. Don't
Yeah,
make
yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
make it awkward for
I
people.
think kids need to know that's
Normal.
that's
Right.
where babies get their food from.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's bad.
No, I don't
Yeah.
either.
I think
I've
we're in
always been
the
the same.
minority though. Between the four of us,
Really?
I think a lot of women have felt judged, and the fact that I don't know if you guys, I think we all haven't felt judged. Have you felt judged for nursing in public?
A couple times I
Have
felt
you?
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never have, but I don't know if that's just because I'm unaware of other people around me and what they think, or
I think mine was
think-
my own insecurities.
yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't want anyone to see my big old baby boo-boo baba.
Has
big old
anybody
juggies.
ever said anything to you like, please don't nurse?
No.
Or can you put that away? Can you put that big thing away?
Sorry, what does that
Oh
mean?
my
It's
gosh.
so
No.
normal that
No.
people
So
are like,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, there was a 24-hour fitness. I think it was 24-hour fitness. This woman, her baby was crying. She was working out, and she wanted to feed her baby. So the lady at the daycare was like, "Your baby's crying." So she took the baby, was nursing the baby in the women's locker room, and a couple of people complained.
oh no.
Told the 24-hour fitness people. They told her she had to leave.
No.
So she went on Facebook and told the story, and the next day, all these breastfeeding moms the next day marched
up to the
around the
house.
24-hour fitness nursing their babies together. It was so
yeah.
awesome.
How you gonna
In the
complain in a locker room?
In the
Like
locker
she could
room.
have whipped it out there and feed it, but
But
She's
even,
like leg pressing and nursing.
even just the fact that you're complaining about breastfeeding, it means you're sexualizing a body.
Yes.
That it's not normal to see a
sexualized.
boob. I am feeding my child. That is the God-given way to feed my child. There's nothing sexual about it. There's nothing provocative. There's nothing like you shouldn't feel any feelings. Like the fact that you're like, that's not okay means you're sexualizing me.
Yep.
Which
And
I
the
think
fact
is
that-
a
so
huge
you're the problem.
problem in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
society. We
What's
sexualize
going on with
your
you?
body.
Like the fact that you can't look at breasts and feel completely disgusted, like that's your problem.
And the
This
thing
is how I
more
feed my
sexual.
baby.
exactly,
Yeah.
and it's another woman going to tell another woman when
I
you
couldn't
know
believe
what's
it.
happening.
Yeah,
Like,
it was a shock.
That
We-
is like why?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
Well, good topic.
Nice topic, ladies.
Yes.
We love those breastfeeding topics. Okay.
Marching around.
Well, kind of on the same line, let's talk about postpartum depression. This is a big topic that affects a lot of women.
Yep.
And I think out of all of us, the three of you have gone through it, right?
I've never actually like thought that I had postpartum depression because I never had like you hear like the classic like you don't love your baby or you're depressed, and so I never had those. But I did notice I got really ragey.
With
like-
all your kids, how many babies do you have, and which ones did you get that with?
So I have 4 kids. I've been pregnant 8 times. And I noticed with my last 2 specifically, and maybe it was just more of a state of awareness, that I got pretty like, I could get ticked off really quick and I could go from 0 to 100 like that. And that's not my personality. Like I'm really
back.
chill, laid back, like I can get along with almost everyone. And my husband actually was the one who started making comments, and he's like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're going to 0 to 100. And I'm like, I just have 4 kids. And I thought it was just the stress of 4 kids. But now looking back and researching more, I'm like, that can be a form of postpartum.
Oh, yeah.
Is like rage.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women don't self-diagnose themselves with depression or even the baby blues because it has such a wide range. They think, oh, it's this box where I don't love my baby or I don't get out of bed in the morning. Postpartum depression can look a million different ways.
It's like a spectrum of it.
It is.
It's a spectrum of where it can be really bad, where it's very small. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I had it primarily with 3 out of my 4 kids, and I would say 2 of them the worst. The first one, I didn't know I had it. But I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I totally was. I was a hermit. I didn't even leave the house for 6 months. I was afraid of everything. I remember taking him to the restaurant and putting a cover over his thing, and I was afraid to go because I didn't want any germs to affect. It was really trippy. And then I think it was probably more I would consider anxiety. Wasn't depression, but I think postpartum can look like anxiety too.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I got really obsessive about his poops and his pees. It was really I look back and I'm like, man, somebody should have helped me. I was counting his poops and pees way past that 7-day mark, way past.
Really?
Yeah, part of it is because he had he was colicky, so I was trying to diagnose everything. With my son James, I had anxiety again so bad. I remember having a panic attack at my house. I was nursing him, and I had to put him into sleep, and I'm sitting there, and I remember feeling the panic attack coming on, and I remember thinking, what will happen if I pass out and nobody's here to take care of my baby? And I didn't know what to do. And I remember texting one of my friends and letting her know, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm gonna die. Am I breathing really hard? And so she told me, right now, she says, go into your freezer and get some ice. She says, and just hold the ice in your hand and breathe it in. I'm like, okay. I did it. It was amazing. It would reconnect, because so when you have a panic attack, I'm not sure if anybody's had a panic attack, whether it's postpartum or just another panic attack outside of it. There's a disassociation that can happen between your brain and your body. So in my mind, I didn't know what I was panicking about. It's not like I was sitting there going, oh, all these problems in my life, I'm so nervous. It wasn't. I was just sitting there nursing my baby, hanging out, and all of a sudden, my body started flipping out. And then you start freaking out about your body flipping out.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not about anything logical. And it can be no reason. Your body's just doing what it wants to do. So what I found the ice did was it kind of reconnected my brain with my body, and just everything kind of calmed down. With my daughter, it looked a bit more different. That was depression. Now mind you, my husband had cancer at the time, so I'm sure there was a lot of things that were going on, postpartum, and they had cancer and all this other stuff. But I remember realizing I had postpartum again when I was sitting in the kitchen washing dishes and contemplating my own death, wishing, fantasizing about it. Oh. And then me looking at it kind of from an outside, looking, very metacognitive experience, going, why? What is so awful right now that you want to die? And I recognizing there is no logical reason for me to feel this way. Something's going on. And so that's when I started trying to figure out, okay, what can I do this time around with it? And I'm happy to share it, but I want to hear more of your guys' stories too. But I can share more of what I did that second time around. It was a little bit more complicated.
So I actually suffered from postpartum depression slightly after my first. We had just moved from Utah to Virginia. My husband started his career. We just graduated from college. Didn't have a support system, didn't know anybody, all of that good stuff. But that didn't last very long, and it didn't get too severe. My second kid, I was okay. But my third baby, we actually moved back from Virginia to Utah. My husband started a new career. We opened up a CrossFit gym. And my hormones literally went crazy. After 2 months, my milk dried up, just gone. And I had nursed my other 2 significantly, 10 months, a year. Actually, I think my daughter, I stopped at 14 months because I was pregnant with my second. And so it just, crazy, my hormones went crazy. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I considered taking my own life. I had some plans set. I just thought that the world would be better without me. And this is what was so weird about my depression is I was still functional. I still took care of my kids. I still got out of bed every day. I just cried a lot. I didn't make friends. And if I did have some relationships with friends, because we had just moved to a new new house, right? New area. It was very walled, or I don't know what the word is. It was just a very limited friendship. I didn't let anybody in. So I think a lot of people now who knew me during that period, they're like, what, you were depressed? And I'd be like, yeah, I just put on a face and you didn't get to know me really, right? But I remember that the day that I gave birth, so I give birth naturally in a birth center and then I go home 2 hours later. Like, it's really quick. I was doing laundry that same day.
No.
What?
Like, it was like I didn't have a support system. I didn't have anybody to come and help me.
Wow.
I remember I had a neighbor have pizza delivered, but that was it. Like, I had to go back to doing things. My husband doesn't help, as much as I needed him to. And so it was a lot of things at once, and it got to the point where my husband was going to drop off my kids at my parents' house. He was like, I need to take them. Like, you need to rest. You need to do something. Like, you've let me in a little bit, and I've seen how severe this is. I'm going to go bring the kids to your parents' house. And I looked at him and I said, I can't be left alone right now. And he's like, holy crap, like, this is real. And I was like, if you leave, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I really need you to stay with me. And you're supposed to be the crier. And so after that, my husband was like, this isn't okay. Like, you need help. You need counseling. But we didn't have the money for it. Like, we were so broke. And so we actually went to my church. I had a bishop and told him my situation, told him that I couldn't afford counseling, but that I really needed it. And he stepped up and they paid for it. Like, 100% they paid for it. And I found the most amazing counselor who really just gave me a bunch of tools. Like, first of all, she validated me. And because I was so critical of myself, I was like, you're being a bad mom. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. Like, you should be loving your baby. Like, everybody talks about how magical the time is after you have a baby and how close heaven is. And I'm like, I love my baby and I don't want to hurt my baby at all. But I'm like, I'm not happy right now. Like, and I kept just praying that God would take it from me. Like, I thought, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. Like, please just, like, take this from me. Like, fix it. And it wasn't getting fixed. It wasn't going away. And it was more than 6 months that I felt this way. But my counselor just helped me see that so many women go through this.
Yeah.
And I wasn't crazy. And it wasn't my fault. It wasn't something that I did to bring it on. And then she taught me about self-compassion. And self-compassion changed everything for me, because I always thought that I had to beat myself up and be critical of myself in order to be a high achiever. Like, I'm a very competitive person, and I've always wanted to achieve a lot in life and be successful in life. And I thought I had to, like, belittle myself almost and just be really harsh and critical. And my counselor taught me, like, no, the opposite is actually true. If you can treat yourself with compassion and see yourself as a human and treat yourself like a good friend would treat you, then that unlocks the doors to true change, that unlocks true motivation, lasting motivation. And I didn't believe her at first. I was like, you're cray-cray. Like, that's not gonna, that's just making excuses. But she's like, just try it. So I tried it. I read everything that I could about it, and it worked. Like, just allowing myself some grace, and then, like, seeing why, okay, you just snapped at your kid. First of all, because you're depressed. Second of all, because you haven't slept in 9 months. And third of all, like there were just so many reasons, and it wasn't, okay, so you can yell at your kids, yell at them all you want.
Right.
It was...
Didn't condone the behavior. It's just, like, recognizing why you're doing it and then kind of wrap your mind around it and then kind of get a hold of yourself and then...
Be like, okay,
yeah,
that sucked. I'm going to go apologize to my kid, or I'm just going to make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm going to be aware of everything. And I healed from it. Like, I was able to pull out of it after several months of counseling and feel like myself again, which I'm normally a pretty happy person, right? Yeah. And so that was, I remember talking to my counselor, and she was like, Brittany, maybe you went through this so that you can one day help somebody else. And I remember thinking, like, maybe one of my daughters or my son's wives will go through this, and maybe I can help them. And so that was kind of as big as the picture that I, envisioned. But then, fast forward, my fourth son was born, and I actually cried for 2 months when I found out I was pregnant with him. It was a surprise. And it wasn't because I didn't want him, it was because I was so scared to get depressed again.
Yeah.
Right.
I really, really didn't want to get depressed again. I was so scared to go back to that dark place. But I surrendered it. I was like, God, you know what you're doing. Like, there's a reason he's here. Like, he's coming now.
Yeah.
But 3 weeks after he was born, we went on a spontaneous trip to Moab. I was like, babe, let's go to Moab. And he's like, you literally just had a baby. Like, I was still bleeding.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I really need to get out. Like, let's go. I love being outside. So while we were driving around, just looking at the beautiful views of Moab. I don't know if you guys been to Moab. Gorgeous, right? So
I don't know if I've been.
You need to go to Moab.
I know. I need to add it to my list of, now that I live here in Utah, I'm going to have to
it's
see
so
some beautiful
beautiful.
places.
While we were driving around, I had this moment where God literally told me, go out and play. Like, enjoy your life. You have one life, live it. And so from that moment on, I just started participating in self-care, like proper self-care that fed my soul, that made me feel whole. And I stopped playing the mom martyr and doing all of those things, like loathing myself. And, you know, I applied that self-compassion, and I didn't get depressed with baby number 4.
Wow.
And I created Get Out There Girl from it.
Yes.
And like my whole life has kind of pivoted because of my experience with postpartum depression. And I'm so grateful now that I got to experience that low of low. Like, it was so bad. But now I can see it and be grateful for it, that I passed through it, so that now it's opened up so many other doors for me. And I can have empathy for other women who have felt that, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a great tool for me, I guess.
That's amazing. Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, and I want to hear more. And I know some of our audiences may not know about Get Out There Girl. So I think that we should, I would love for you to be able to share more about like what that's about. But there's a couple of things that you said first that just really resonated with me. One, about the self-compassion and like you recognizing you shouldn't talk to you that way. I remember one time with my depression, I was doing something very similar. I was just knocking myself, I don't remember what I did, but I was just bad-mouthing myself. I remember getting out of the car in my driveway and like thinking like, Tracy, you're such an idiot. You did this, and then you did this. And I don't remember what it was that I did, but I remember saying that. And then all of a sudden I got this thought that just came into my head. It wasn't an audible thought. Like, it wasn't like audible voice of God, that wasn't that kind of experience, but it was definitely a thought that just came into my head I didn't feel was my own. And it was like, it went like this. So I'm like, you're an idiot. I can't believe you did this. And all of a sudden it was, don't talk to my daughter that way.
Whoa.
And then it kind of like pulled me out and thinking, and then I thought like, how would I feel if someone else was talking to my daughter the way that I was talking to myself? And I really felt like it was God telling me like, you don't talk like that to yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you kind of start recognizing where those thoughts can go, So I think that's just so powerful. And I love how you were talking about, recognizing where you're at, kind of thinking, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way, this is what's going on. And it doesn't mean that you should just go full throttle on what you're doing. You're just kind of like slowing down and kind of going, okay, this is what's happening. How can I modify my behavior even though I'm feeling this way? Because I think that's one of the big struggles that a lot of, I know I've had, and I've seen so many others, is when you start to feel the feelings, you let those feelings define you, and then you
get stuck.
do those things that, like, because, well, I'm depressed, therefore I'm just going to continue to do this. Versus recognizing, maybe kind of stepping out of yourself a little bit and going, okay, that's interesting. I'm feeling these depressed, thoughts. I'm feeling these I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling anxious right now. Why? Why am I feeling that way right now? And you don't let it define you. Don't let it be like, this is who I am. I am depressed. I am anxious, right? Instead of like, this is a feeling. It doesn't mean that that it defines my circumstances. It doesn't mean that this is what I'm actually experiencing. My life is not awful. Just because I feel like it is doesn't mean that that's actually true. It's just a feeling. Okay, now what do I do with that? How can I, adjust my behavior in a positive way to kind of like counter those feelings that don't really actually define what's truly happening
and I think
around.
It's great you see that. When I worked at a psych hospital for like 5 years, and you see different people that are willing to make change or not, because a lot of people would love to sit as a victim in their like obstacle. And it's hard. And I know so with some of my friends, I have a friend that really deal with that, and we no longer talk because it was just like, let me pump you up and get you out of there. But for her, it was easier to sit in that situation And I think, like you say, you have to recognize it. And I think one thing that I love that you say, it's like the willingness to know that there was something wrong and that you needed that help. Because I've never dealt with postpartum, but I remember one story that broke my heart when I worked at the psych hospital. I worked graveyards, and I just remember, like, I was in the front, and when it night, people can always check in because it's a 24-hour facility. And our door in our facility rang, and then I went to open because I was in intake at that time. Went to answer it. It was the husband, the wife, and you can tell, like, the wife was just so fragile, like, and then the mother-in-law, and the wife and the husband was just like, I don't know what's going on, but I know she knows she needs help. Like, she couldn't even verbalize what was going on.
Yep.
Like, she's like, she just got home 2 days ago from the hospital. It's her and I. My mom just came in but she was, I think it was like 3 days, like, she was like taking care of the baby, changing the diaper, and all she was saying is she wants to hurt the baby. She was depressed. She was going through that. And this lady, like, you can tell, like, something she dealt with throughout her pregnancy, like the prepartum you talk about, and then after. And when we admitted her, and that the guilt of, like, I'm a bad mom, like, I just had this baby, like, and throughout every night I would work, and I would, like, get to see her progress. And compassion was one thing with therapists. Self-compassion was something she was taught. Like, she spent 15 days, and think about it, a new mom, sending 15 days away from your child.
Wow. Yeah.
Think of that guilt mom, but she realized that there was a help, that she needed help. In order for her to take care of that child and not harm that child, she had to do the work that is necessary. Because I remember when she left, I was just like, wow, what?
A transformation.
A transformation. And for her to realize it too, because she was like, I don't even remember, like, being in that stage. I don't remember what got me there. Like, you know, every time I would talk to her, and, like, we'd do group therapy, when I would lead their group therapy, and she would, like, I love my baby, like, but I don't know about it on. So it's really, like I said, the spectrum of how different it is, and it's not something you can choose to just snap out of it sometime, you know? So it's great to hear, like, how you guys kind of, like, overcome it, because it's not easy.
No, it isn't. And you said something that made me think, like, a lot of times you don't even know that you are depressed until you've been depressed for a while. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's almost like a dark curtain or blanket, whatever you want to call it, like, kind of comes over your head, and all you see is darkness, and you don't even know you're in the dark because it's all you see. So you just think it just colors your entire reality until one day, however long that might be, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, depending on the person, that you kind of, like, you might have a moment of clarity where you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm depressed.
Well, I've had women on my Get Out There Girl retreats who've said, because I'll share my story very openly, and they'll say, okay, I think I'm depressed, but I don't know for sure. Like, can you tell me some of the signs? And so they'll tell me some of the things that they're experiencing. And I'm like, if you want help, if you don't want to be that way, then let's do something about it. Don't just accept it.
Right.
Don't accept the bad feelings. Don't accept the sadness.
Right. Even if it's not in some diagnostic book with a little, code next to it. You know, it's like, you don't feel good? Then that's a problem.
If you want to feel differently, then there are tools. I think that's the biggest message that I want to share with everybody, is that it's not a permanent feeling, and you don't have to feel that way. There are tools that you can get to help you heal from it. Recovery is completely and fully possible, and so don't ever feel like you're just destined to be depressed all the time. Some of the stats that I was looking up before the show was that 70 to 80% of women will experience some part of postpartum depression or baby blues somewhere on the spectrum. You guys, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yep.
So it's about 20% of women will be diagnosed with postpartum depression, but that's just diagnosed. That's not even.
That's
all
only the ones that
reported.
came up and said, I'm going to go to the doctor and let them know and fill out the little chart.
I never did that. I never went to a doctor, my family doctor, and filled out the form. Like, how are you feeling? I'm feeling depressed. Okay, here's some I never did that. So mine was an unreported case.
Yeah. But one of the things that you did, and maybe you can talk more about Get Out There Girl, is Get Out There Girl was a part of your breaking out of depression and helping other women break out of depression too, or just live a better life? Like, what's the heart behind it?
So for me, it was depression, but I found that it's just living your best life. I feel like a lot of women are mom martyrs, I want to say, And I remember the time that this came up was my husband. I was waking up in the middle of the night to feed a baby, and the baby started crying, and I let out this like big loud moan, like, ugh, like
I have to be the one to get up and take care of the baby.
I really wanted him to know, like, feel bad for me. Like, here I go again, the mom. And he was like, Brittany, stop being the martyr. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't. Like, I was livid. I was so mad at him. And like, I'm going to go feed your offspring while you sleep in bed. Like, oh, no. Like, I was so mad. So mad. Even just now, I'm like,
You like, can't believe you said that.
Brings back feelings.
brings back, I need to process this.
Yes.
But then a couple days later, like the more I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, he thinks that there are things that I do unnecessarily because I think I have to, because it's the mom thing. And so the more I started thinking about it, the more I'm like, I actually kind of do think that being a mom of young kids is supposed to be miserable. I kind of do think that I'm supposed to be suffering right now, that it is supposed to be terrible. I can't go out with my friends. I can't do all of these things. And so then I was like, okay, I need to think really about what he said and diagnose myself and be mindful about where I am and where I'm not and what really is being a mom and what isn't. And anyway, the 3 things for me that led to Get Out There Girl was from all of that mindfulness was the self-compassion that I've talked about. It was also being outside. Being outside for me, and I've noticed for a lot of other women, is very healing.
Yes.
A lot of our to-do lists
Are inside.
go away outside. I feel like we're just connected to nature and to Mother Earth. And then also the third aspect of Get Out There Girl is making connections with other women. I feel like that's one of the tools that feeds depression is isolation.
Yep.
And I feel like when we can be vulnerable with another woman, that opens a door for her to be vulnerable with us, and then a true connection is made, and we don't feel alone. And once we don't feel alone, that validates us. And I feel like validation is a basic human need, like food, water, validation.
I think validation is big.
Amen.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So big.
It's so big.
That's actually what my therapist says. It's actually a human need.
I
It
believe
is.
it.
It
Yeah,
is.
Literally.
way to go, Michelle.
Yeah. Literally.
Michelle.
Yeah.
And when we think of spectrum, I think one thing you wanted to talk about is prepartum. Because you said you dealt with that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I noticed after I was getting a little ragey, more so I think because my husband was pointing it out. And I look back now, I'm like, was I really, or was it just like compounding 4 kids, owning all these businesses? But definitely I was in a place where I was more ragey, so we're gonna claim that. But I really suffered from prepartum. So with my last 2, it didn't happen on my first 2. So it happened with my third.
No, you've had a couple of miscarriages in between.
Yeah. So I've had a miscarriage in between every kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's
So
an
I'm wondering if that
important
played a
fact.
part of a role in there. I'm just like automatically thinking
It
like, you
could,
know, like
yeah.
you associate trauma with this. Is the baby gonna, you know, am I gonna lose this baby? Am I not? Like
So
there's anxiety.
so
that's
my
very true.
anxiety was about, I was convinced. So I got pregnant my 3rd time, and about halfway through, I just felt this really, really strong conviction that I was going to pass away during childbirth.
Oh my gosh.
And like I kept it a secret because I was like, if you say it, you don't want to manifest
true.
it.
Right.
And it just kept eating me alive. And I was like, no, I'm going to die. And I was super confused because a lot of times it wasn't coming from a place of like fear or panic. It was coming from like, because, you know, in our religion, they talk about, you know, the spirit doesn't scare you. And so I was like, but I felt calm about it. Like I was like, I'm going to pass away. And like, Johnny's going to be left with these kids, so like, how can I prepare him? But at the same time, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pass away. So it like got really, really bad to the point where I was like writing letters to all of my family members, like made sure like I had a will. I like planned my own funeral with like hymns and everything. Like I was convinced I was going to die. And sometimes I would get super, super, super scared about it. And then I'd be overcome with peace. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to be okay, and like I've given you this information so you can do what you want with these last days. Terrifying.
Yeah.
So I finally told Johnny, and I was like, I think I'm going to die when I give birth. And do you know what my husband said? I've had the same conviction.
Stop it.
No way.
Yep. And that really threw me. He was like, I feel the exact same way. He's like, I haven't wanted to tell you, but I can't stop thinking about it. I just have this overwhelming sense that you're going to pass away when you give. And I was like, shit. I'm gonna die. If I think it and you think it,
Yeah, you would think,
I'm
okay,
gonna
I
die.
guess this is true.
Yeah, and so
what did you do?
So literally, I just thought I was gonna die. So
Baby number three.
Baby number 3. So it was very traumatic. Like I was convinced, he was convinced, and we kind of both like under like kind of like accepted it almost, but like didn't say it out loud. Like we didn't tell a lot of people. Like I told my mom and a few close friends, and they were like, "No, you're not gonna die." And I was like, "No, like I want you to know, like I really think I am. And, like the spirits told me, and like Johnny thinks it." And everyone was kind of like, "You're crazy." Well, obviously I'm still here. I didn't die, right?
Yeah.
So I go into labor, and I'm like, "These are my last moments." Like very traumatic.
Oh my gosh.
I end up having my baby unmedicated because I was like,
You're
I'm gonna
scared.
die. I really wanted to do this. Let's just do it because let's go out with a bang, right? I literally thought I was gonna die.
Only
Well, I
Robyn.
didn't die, right?
Oh my.
So
After you got done, were you like,
right
"Am I not dead?"
after I had my baby, and like, and still for like the first 24 hours, I'm like, no, it's gonna be an embolism after. Like, it's
You're still
not
waiting
healthy.
for it,
It's
yeah.
not healthy. So then about a week later, I'm like, oh, I'm not dead. So anyways, I get through that. Well, I get pregnant with my 4th. And the day I found out I was pregnant, I was like,
This is the
this
one.
is the one. Like Heavenly Father's prepped me. I didn't die the last one. But like this is the one. And it was so bad. I couldn't even function. And I again went to Johnny and I was like, what do you think? And I think he was traumatized from the last time. He's like, I feel the same way, but I just think I'm traumatized. And so I had to get therapy.
Yeah.
I went all the time. And I would like talk with the counselor and she's like, you know, let's discern between like what's anxiety and what's like spiritual promptings. And I was just so convinced. I'm like, no, but like I feel okay about it. Like I've come with peace, but I'm still scared, but I'm not. Anyway, she helped me sort through it, and I still wasn't like convinced that I wasn't gonna die, but I felt a lot better about it. And I almost like the second time, I again like wrote all the letters, made sure all my finances were in order, but I started telling more people because I was like, if I'm really gonna die, like I want people to know how I feel about them. So like all my close friends, like now it's an inside joke. They're like, remember when you came to me and you were gonna die? I really thought I was gonna die, literally. Like anxiety is so scary. So then I had my baby, same thing. Like once I like had the baby, like I have like a little bit of relief, but like then for the whole hospital stay, I'm still like, at any moment I'm gonna die. And I was hyper obsessed with any stories that I heard about women dying in childbirth. Like I would research it, I'd find their family on Facebook, I'd find their cousins. I was obsessed with it. I would donate to their GoFundMes. Like I was like, this is gonna be me and my family. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad. Anyways, I didn't die. And honestly, the reason I'm having no more kids is because I cannot do that
You
again.
can't go through that.
And I'm like, not today. You wanna kill me off with a 3rd kid? Well, I'm not gonna do it. No,
That
it's
is, like,
it's not
mentally
healthy.
like exhausting
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like terrifying.
Yeah, it was terrifying actually.
Wow.
But it's crazy is like now that I have my baby's 1.5 and like by a week I was fine. It was
good.
like I don't know if like my hormones had a switch. I just had to get the baby out. I don't know what it was, but I never had those thoughts again, and I've never had that thought again that I'm gonna die, and I don't have any anxiety wrapped around it. But like actually having the conviction and thinking God has spoke to you that you will die is terrifying.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially when your husband like
It's
Confirmed
I
it.
really
Confirms it,
wish
and you're
that
like-
Johnny, like when he said that, it took a really unhealthy spiral.
Yeah.
Because I was hoping to be like, no, oh my gosh, no. And he was like, I feel it too. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to die, you know? Anyways, I didn't die. I'm still here. But like for anyone else suffering through that, like I don't think it gets talked about near as much. And when I went, so actually, I ended up telling my OB, like on the 3rd one, and he was like, no, like he was so nice. He's like, we'll do extra things to watch you. And I was like, I'm worried I'm gonna bleed out on the table. I'm worried. And he was like, okay, I'll have extra people in there. I will have extra supplies. Like he was so awesome. He's like, I'll have this kit that if you hemorrhage, and they did. And that made me feel better. And so then on the 4th, like right from the get-go, he's like, are you having those thoughts again? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know what? I have a therapist who actually works at the clinic now. I didn't know that. They actually have therapists that work at OBGYNs.
Wow,
a lot of time.
that's
And
good.
he's like, this is not a choice. Like every time you meet with me, you're gonna walk upstairs and meet with her. He's like, because this is not normal. Like you're not gonna die. And he was just so sweet. He's like, last time we defied death together, like you're here. But still, I made sure that I was like, have extra people in there. Like I was for sure thought I was gonna die.
I think the thing about postpartum or prepartum, when you look at it just for women in general, it's not something that is talked about. There's not a lot of resources about it. And then you think of like even the low income community, like the single moms that are going through that doesn't have the support, that have to find daycare. And I think it's something that, where can women go to find the support? Because there's people that cannot have the support. Like, think of a woman that's in a situation that doesn't have that husband where she's like, don't leave me. Like, and it's just her and that child.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's just like, how do we make those...
Where can they find support?
Where can they find resources like that for people that are not able to get the resources? Because it is a disease. It is something that women are, like I said, 70%, that's the reported. What about those women that are not able to report it? Right. That has to get up and go back to work in the 6 weeks there, you know? Yeah. It is a challenge, and I hope that we can find more resources to provide for those that are not able to get it.
There has to be
one
free
of the things that I think
Yeah.
we have to be brave as women. Like, we have to know when we need help, and we have to be brave enough to ask for it. And know that we're not broken. There's nothing wrong with us, and there's nothing wrong with getting help, because most doctors do ask, are you having any of these feelings? Do you feel sad? Do you feel that, you know what I mean? The post-op, or the, what do they call that?
6 weeks.
The 6 week checkup. They usually ask those questions, right? And so if you are feeling those things, like, stand up for yourself and voice those. Don't be ashamed of them. Don't keep it hidden. Express those feelings that you really have. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel those ways, and get that help if, you know what I mean? Like,
I think I wonder too, and maybe you guys have felt this, like, I wonder if sometimes women are worried that if they do they have some of these things, that maybe their baby will get taken away.
That's
because
what
I've had a couple of those and maybe I did have postpartum, but like, there was a couple times where I'm like, I could answer yes to some of these, but I don't want anyone thinking I'm not capable of keeping with my kids.
So, and so we do have a social worker, but the thing is, and that's why I think about the low income, when you think of the Black community, the Latino community, all these communities, they have children, and then they have to go to work. So they don't have the leisure to, like, report, because that's the thing. In that 6 week, they can't put, like, I'm having these thoughts, because it is the doctor's job. Yes, so it is the doctor's job once that is reported, that, hey, this mom is saying she can't take care of her child. So then now you put a social worker in that just add more stress to that, you know, to that. Because, like, if I'm showing up in your home, we've had this call where you, like, show up and, like, no. But the thing that I want people to understand is there are resources. So if you do tell that to your doctor, because I see women that goes through it all the time, then we provide the help. Like, we find, like, okay, we can help your kids in a daycare while you get some sleep. Like, there was one thing that happened in Salt Lake, I think about a year ago. This mom, 2 kids, she had a baby. She had to return back to work. She works graveyard. And so what she would do, and she had the great idea, it wasn't bad, she had to do her best. She locked the door and put the kids in the front room. You know, there's gates, and the baby falling asleep with her, and the 3-year-old watching TV while she sleep on the couch. But unfortunately, she may have been really tired that the 3-year-old got out and was walking on the road, and people called the cops, and the cops show up. And most of the time you think about it, you're like, wow, social worker, and the cops are involved. And it wasn't the way we look at it is not to remove your child. It's like, how can we help provide you the resources and the informal care, formal care, somebody support that we can find you, because you are doing this on your own, and it's hard to do on your own. So let's help find you the support needed. So what ended up being done is, like, okay, we can pay for daycare for this amount of time while you get some sleep, and that you can help your children, you know? And so there is that scared of, like, you guys will come and take my child, and
that's good to know that that's not
relevant.
like they're just going to take your kids.
And we're not, and we're going to try and find
you.
support. And so there is support. So if you are struggling and going through that, reach out to your family services, because there are so many resources available, and we'll even pay for therapy. So if it's like you need therapy and you can't afford it, and you need that help, we will pay for that. So those are the resources that is available here to provide for these women that can't afford it.
You know, and I think therapy is good, but I want to clarify some of the things that I've learned is that there could be numerous different types of solutions, and it's not always the same for every circumstance and every woman. For someone, therapy might be what helps. For others, getting out there might be what helps, right? For some, maybe prayer is what helps. Or medication.
Some I just need some sleep.
Right,
support.
For me, with my with Scotland, my youngest, what I found really helped me that time around was I had around that time when I was suicidal, okay, I had just done, prior to that, a detox, a 30-day detox, and I felt so good on that detox. I was feeling really good. And then after the 30 days, I was like, okay, back to my normal way of eating. And so I started going back to my normal way of eating, which included, by the way, on this 30-day detox that I was doing, was no wheat, no dairy, and a couple of other things. And so then I had went back to my normal way of eating, and that's when, about 3 or 4 days in is when I started having those suicidal thoughts. And so when I saw that was happening, I'm like, oh my gosh, that this postpartum is, I'm starting to get it again. I started kind of thinking, okay, I felt pretty good, before that. What changed? And I noticed the wheat was like pretty much the only big difference. I don't think I had brought dairy back in at this point. And so I started like, could it be the wheat that like for me like was influencing things? So I started doing some research and found that some people can be definitely allergic to wheat, but a lot of us think that allergies are like, oh, you get a skin rash or you get, like stuffed up in your nose. Yeah. But histamines, actually there are 4 different types of histamines that really affect your body. One, it can affect your skin. Some affects your sinuses and breathing. Some affect your stomach, and others affect your neurotransmitters. Really? So if you already are inclined, like I am, I'm very inclined to depression. I've had it numerous times over the course of my life, so it's not a surprise that I was inclined to postpartum depression too, because just my body is it likes to go that way. Mm-hmm. If you have an allergy to certain foods, it can influence your neurotransmitters. So if you're already inclined and then you throw in this aggravator into the situation, boom. So once I started finding that out, I was like, okay, I'm going to test this. So I got off the wheat again, and my symptoms started to get better.
Really?
Yeah. And then I went back on, and then I started noticing for me that I could have a little bit of wheat, but if I went like 2 or 3 days in a row of having wheat, the depression would come back. Wow. So as part of my postpartum healing was I got off of wheat, and then I also found that if I was having a panic attack, CBD oil really made a difference. No THC in it, but I would put some CBD oil underneath my tongue, and I noticed within 20 minutes the panic attacks would go away. Didn't cure the depression part. The depression for me was really influenced a lot by like the wheat, and I think I took a little bit of ashwagandha later on to like help me with that. But the wheat was the biggest culprit for me. So some things to definitely look at. Another thing that I'm thinking of looking at you, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm interested in exploring, like maybe exploring this a little bit.
Yeah.
If you had multiple miscarriages between each one of your babies, one of the biggest, what they've been finding in research is that women who are prone to miscarriages tend to have MUF4 mutations. I have a MUF4 mutation.
What is that?
So it's a mutation in your genes that affects your methylation. And one of the problems is that it makes it so that you have a difficult time absorbing folic acid. So what happens is you get your folate naturally from vegetables and so forth, but when you're pregnant, a lot of times these doctors will put you on a prenatal pill. Most of those prenatals have folic acid in it. And so what happens is because you have a MUF4 mutation, your body can't absorb it, so it plugs up all of your folate receptors basically, and you can't detoxify correctly, and it can affect your thinking. It can actually affect your anxiety, it can affect your thinking and so forth. And MUF4 mutations lead to miscarriages.
Can it also lead, I'm curious, because all my babies I've had IUGR, which is intrauterine growth restriction. So they take me at 37 weeks because my babies don't grow, and then my placenta starts to die.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
I don't know enough about that, but that's interesting that you have both. So something to definitely check out. And any moms out there, if you are prone to miscarriage, like go and see if you have a MUF4 mutation.
How do you fix it?
Well, the way that you do it is you know that you have a hard time detoxifying. You make sure that you take a lot of methyl B vitamins. Don't take folic acid. Do not take folic acid. Take natural folate. You can get it in supplement form. It's called 5-MTHFR. Or tons of leafy green vegetables, but when you're pregnant, you probably should take the folate as well, just because you need that extra amount to make sure that your kids are healthy.
It feels like eating
so
tons of
take
salad when you're pregnant.
folate. So lots of leafy greens. Naturally, like all your life, make sure you eat lots of leafy greens. But when you're pregnant, definitely take folate, not folic acid. And
gosh.
what was the other thing that I was going to mention?
Where was
Babies and
this?
you did it
Oh,
wrong.
and make sure
Yeah.
that you detoxify better. So like light exercise, going into the sauna and sweating, because your body has a hard time detoxifying. So you need to do things to kind of encourage it to detoxify. Otherwise, you won't. And then you get the toxic thinking and all the inflammation in your gut, which affects your serotonin levels. It's like a big domino effect. So
Is
we
that why
actually
I
got a
have such a big
sauna
poochy tummy?
in my house because my husband has 2 mother mutations. And so he can't detoxify well at all. So we have a sauna now to help him detoxify. I'm starting to go in there better, and I notice it's helping me feel better when I'm starting to get like in a funk. I'll just go
How
in
do
there.
you find out you have one?
Sauna
Like, is
party.
it a blood test?
So if anybody's ever done Ancestry.com or what's the other
yeah.
one? Like any of those
go.
like trendy DNA tests.
Yeah.
What you do is if you do those, that'll tell you like what your ethnicity is and stuff like that. But you can download your genome, and you can send it to. There's a number of different well-established, trustworthy places where you can send them your genome, and they'll break down all of your mutations. And you can find out all sorts of interesting things about you.
I need to do this.
Dr. Ben Lynch is my favorite. He's like the expert on mother mutations, and he has a test that you can do. You can send your stuff in. He'll send you the 12 mutations that you have control over, so that you still have the mutation, but you can actually influence your genes to turn on or turn off. And he gives you examples of what to do in your life to toxins to stay away from, lifestyle things to make adjustments to, that kind of a thing, so that you can get healthy. And he has also his company Seeking Health has prenatals that don't have folic acid in it. They're with folate. So he's like one of the leading researchers in it.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really, really helpful. So
I actually do. I totally believe that like what we eat and our natural, genes play a big part into like
mental health.
Yep.
into our mental health.
Totally.
Because that's an organism. Like
Well,
what
and
we
when
eat.
I think
yeah.
it's a cycle. Like when you don't feel good, the last thing you want to do is go make a healthy meal.
Yep.
Like I
Yeah.
was eating chocolate Teddy Grahams
Yep.
like crazy
Oh,
when
those
I
are so delicious.
like.
and it becomes basically a
After-
perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
Like so now you're not sleeping well, and you're eating
Crap.
crap food, right? And you're stressed because you're up all night breastfeeding, and you've got 3 other kids, and you have to work, all the things.
Yeah.
And then it just creates, I think, a perfect storm and especially if you're biologically more inclined to depression, it doesn't take much. A little trigger here, and boom, you're in that kind of a place.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Yeah,
gonna look
but
that
thanks
up.
for sharing your stories, because I think a lot of women can relate to every one of the stories. And,
Oh, yeah.
And it's so hard, but there are resources out there. And
Yep.
I think we can I'll find some links because I see it. Like I said, I've never had to deal with it, but I do see women that goes through it that it's hard to reach out and ask for help, but there are resources out there.
One of
and
my friends actually recently, a couple years ago, came out like on social media and like said it to the world. Like I have postpartum depression, and I just think what she's been doing has been beautiful with it, because she still has it, and she still manages it, and she'll post like today was a good day, today's a bad day. But I loved that she was just like, she decided I'm gonna let people know, and she acts as an encouragement to other women who have it. And, because I think a lot of people think that if they can't get through it, then they failed. But what she really shows is as someone who still has it, like that she's trying to work through it, and that she has good days and bad days, but that she's still here, and that there's still good things in her life, and she still shares those things. And I think that it's just really inspiring for other women who might feel like failures if they haven't been able to beat it like you did, or like any of us were able to
Yeah.
conquer it. Like they still are there, and getting out didn't help them, and taking folate didn't help them, or all
Right.
anything that they tried. Like, okay, then how do you just continue on and try to find joy and pay attention to your symptoms? This is how I'm feeling, and get the support that you need.
What if you change the narrative to I am depressed to I am fighting depression, or I'm battling depression, or I have anxiety, or I am anxious.
Or maybe
to
not
I
am. How about
fighting.
I feel it?
Yeah.
Because that's not who you are. It's a feeling.
Yeah,
And maybe
that's what I'm
using
saying.
that kind of
I
words,
feel-
right?
Change that
Yeah.
narrative to instead of attaching it to your
Yeah.
identity, is saying it's something that you're dealing with. Or
Right.
You're
And I
feeling.
think we need to just start making mental health like a part of an everyday life. It's like people don't want to talk about it sometimes. You know what I mean? We try to oh my gosh, especially in some communities, like they don't even want, no, I'm not depressed. What is depression? Like even my husband the other day, I'm like, you having like an anxiety right now about this? He's like, I don't like that word.
Yeah.
And
He didn't want to be labeled.
He didn't want to be labeled because
Yeah.
it's seen as like
It's like a
oh no
weakness almost.
Exactly, especially
Yeah.
for men and like you know in different culture, they don't want to be like African American. They don't like therapy. They don't like being called they're depressed because we supposed
You're
to be
fighters.
strong. We're
Right,
fighters.
right.
We've overcome so much.
Yeah.
Like if you having a depression, like you got 72 hours. You know, and 72 hours. No, it's like. Nobody wants to sit in it, you know? So I think we just need to make it awareness
change
that
this.
mental health is, people go through it every day and it's okay if you're having an off
Yeah.
day.
I want to add to that, what you just said made me think of this about different communities. The faith community, I find, being in the Christian community, I'm not sure if you guys have seen similar things, but like I think there's a stigma associated with depression because you're not supposed to be depressed because you have God. And you have Jesus, and so like and I've heard people say that, like, you just need to like pray, or you just need to like put more trust in Jesus.
Yes.
And it's like, dude, I have been praying. I do trust in Jesus, and I'm still feeling this way.
Thank you for
So
saying
like,
that.
you know, like, so for
Yeah.
any ladies out there who might be struggling with this, and you are part of the faith community, like, don't feel like you're not doing it good enough, you know, when it comes to your faith and anything like that. You can still have these physical things, and I feel like, you know, you can actually, I think, in many ways, help you grow closer to God in your depression if you go through it with Him, you know, in some way, and like just
support.
talk to Him about it. I'm feeling this way, you know.
Support.
It doesn't
Use it as a
necessarily.
support. You don't have to take God out of it, but like that was my biggest thing. I got mad when I work in a psych hospital, having a teenager come in that you find him unconscious, and then you telling them they just need to pray, and I'm like, I get that, but now there's a bigger problem that we need to. So I'm so glad that you said that. Like, it's okay to use it as support and always be part of you. But
That's
And
not
for
always
some
the
people,
solution.
that alone
Yeah.
might be all that's needed, and
That's
that's
true.
wonderful and beautiful and great. But it's not always as simple as that.
awesome.
I remember thinking, like, just take it from me. Like, I know that God had the ability to take it from me, and I was doing everything. I was checking everything off of my list, right? That I was supposed to be a spiritual person and to be worthy enough for Him to take it from me. And I had the belief that He could take it from me, right? But He wasn't. And I think my mindset had to shift to, what do I need to learn from this? What's the purpose in this? In that you're not taking it from me. What can I learn?
Yeah.
What can I be taught? And what can I do proactively to be healed and to have the tools to heal from that, rather than just expect God to take it.
And I think that when He does get involved, it can look different for different people. I've had friends God has miraculously healed them of their depression. But then I've had others where He hasn't, right? And so you can kind of sometimes be in this like, well, how come you did that for that person, but you didn't do it for me? I had a spiritual experience once, because like I've said before, I've experienced depression numerous times over the course of my life, not just with postpartum. So it's always been something I've had to work through. But one of the many times I've had it, I did have a spiritual experience that did help me, but it was not the way I looked. So I was going through it again, and it was one of those situations where I didn't know I was depressed until like months into it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and then I realized it, and I was praying, Lord, please take this from me, take this from me, take this from me. Wasn't taking it from me. I'm praying, I crying, all of it, not happening. And then one day I was in church, and we were worshiping, we were singing some worship songs, and I was closing my eyes, and I was praying again, like, please take this from me. Finally, I got something, but it was not the way I looked. It was kind of in my head the way that I saw it, but all of a sudden I felt like this light starting to come down in front of me. So it was just like this beam of light that was right in front of me. And I'm like, okay, what's this? This is God's love. Okay, but God, can you put the beam of light like over me where I'm at? Because that's like, that light's right there and I'm here. So can you like put the light over here and then heal me? And it wouldn't move. And I felt like God was saying, you need to step into that light. And I had to make the choice to actually stand into it. I'll correct with this. So I did. So I'm like there in the worship, I see it, I feel like, okay, I have to step in the light. Okay, fine, I'll step into the light. So then I stepped into the light that I was seeing in my mind. None of this is actually like, it's all very internal what was happening here with me. And I could feel the warmth, but I didn't feel happy yet. And I was like, okay, I'm in the light, God, but I'm not feeling happy yet. And then I felt like I heard Him say, do you want to be happy? And I said, yes. He said, then smile.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, fine. I'll force myself to smile even though I don't feel happy. and then I forced myself to smile, and then boom, all of a sudden this dark feeling that was in me flew out through the top of my head and then flew up into the air, and the depression was gone. Now that was a one-time experience. I've had numerous bouts of depression of other times in my life, and that was the only time that ever happened, but that was a time that happened for me, and I was done. The depression was gone.
That's
Why
so
for me it had to
cool.
be that way?
That
Yeah,
is
for
an
me in that moment,
experience,
he
for
was like, "This
sure.
is your choice. You need to make the decision to do it, and then I'll give it to you, but you need to step out in action for this."
Yeah, you need to step into the light.
For me, I don't know why he made me do it that way, and he doesn't do it like that for some others, but yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's actually really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
Thank
I
you
also
for-
would have
go
loved
ahead.
to have been like watching you have that experience. I'm like, she's
Going
stepping
all the way.
forward.
Stepping forward.
Said she wasn't. It's all in head.
And
Well,
it's
no,
just
like
a-
if I'm singing next to her, I want to see what she's
Like,
doing,
she's
like
standing
stepping
up.
up
Yeah,
and
I did.
stepping forward. That's amazing.
well,
Thank you.
And thanks
you.
for sharing. That was awesome. Well, thank you for joining our Brave Conversations.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification so you don't miss our next episode.
Ready for more? Click on the next video for more Brave Conversations.
Have some brave topics you'd like us to discuss? Leave your suggestions below. We'd love to hear from you.
See you next week.
Hey, brave girl, how you do the things that you do?